feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the DaneMoore NBA podcast. We're brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you Wednesday morning. It's January 28th. I've got Britt Robson from Min Post here with me a week before the trade deadline, which means this will be the last episode that the two of us do prior to the Wolves making a trade. I'd assume they make some sort of trade, and we'll talk about that. But I think the roster will be different to some extent next time we do an episode together. So that's going to kind of be the thrust of the episode. I will talk about the current status of the roster, how they've been playing lately, but sort of through the lens of the deadline. I'm recording this Wednesday morning before the Wolves play in Dallas this evening. So just for kind of timestamp purposes, we're recording this before whatever happens in that game. I'm going to make sure I want to talk about the Oklahoma City matchup though a little bit. Okay. Even though that's getting a little ahead of ourselves for where we are at this current moment. But I think that'll be is worth talking about, so we can get some thoughts in on that prior to the Wolves playing them back here in Minneapolis on Thursday night. But Britt, you wrote about the looming deadline in your column this morning, I think kind of posing the question of, can the Wolves make a meaningful move at the deadline without trading one of their starters / Nas, or right, put them just that top six there. Do you think they can make a meaningful move without disrupting the top six?
Not intellectually, but I can take it on faith that Tim Connolly will figure out something that I can't figure out.
Sure.
I mean, I've said this a lot. Probably a lot of people are sick of me saying it, but nobody knows who's really out there, who isn't, what it would take to get somebody, what it wouldn't, who's a bargain right now. I mean, you can get a general sense, but it's so polluted by agents and people trying to set agendas. You know, agents are just doing their job, which is, you know, setting up a better negotiating system for their client or boosting their client's value in some way, shape, or form. But there's a lot of strategic leaking going on at this time, and it's enabled by people who live by the leak. So, you know, you have this, I'll wash your hand, you wash mine system of strategic disinformation that surrounds all of these times. And so rather than indulge myself in it, I usually just try to get the lay of the land of the situation I'm looking at in terms of like this roster and what this roster can get. And by that standard, a meaningful piece, in my opinion, would be a player off the bench who has an ability to put some organization into a lineup when he's on the court, has floor general instincts, if not an outright point guard, who could score, hopefully defend as well. But those are being kind of a ball sharing, playmaking scorer, probably thus in the backcourt, because the Wolves are pretty stacked up front, I think, would be the thing. And there are a lot of names out there, but like, again, I have no idea. TJ McConnell, Jose Alvarado. I mean, you know, are those guys available? Indiana, he was fantastic for Indiana in the finals last year. And he's probably a relatively affordable piece. Does he want to move from Philadelphia, where I'm sure he's revered, kind of like Nas is here in his own way? You know, and what would it take to get him? All this stuff. So you can pick out names and you can say, all right, you know, this is who I'd want. But then the question becomes, what will it take to get him? And then I said meaningful in the thing before, because you do have a pretty solid top six, as good, I think, as most top sixes in the NBA. And you've got a system where Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards are still going to need the ball a lot, you know. So it is going to be a bench piece, I think, and it is going to be somebody who has specific skills. You've got Bones Highland, who's making like little over $2.3 million on a one-year deal. If you get somebody else as a minor piece, are they going to be that much better in terms of that much value? And if they are, how does that affect you going up against the salary cap in 26, 27. I mean, all these things have to factor into it. So I guess what I would say is that the guy who's getting millions of dollars and is an incredible tens of millions of dollars, Tim Connolly, and is a networker par excellence, knows how to do this better than I do. And so what I can't see happening well or easily, he might.
It's about to make a trade that doesn't include somebody from the top six requires you to, provided you're trading for a valuable player, to be trading something of value. And with the Wolves only having a couple of second round picks that they can trade, like this conversation on the Wolves side starts with what has value outside of your top six. And, you know, that would be Rob Dillingham, Johan Berenger, Terrence Shannon Jr. Outside of that, you know, could somebody be interested in a Jalen Clark here? Or, you know, maybe we would take Leonard Miller there type of situation. But that's really where I think this whole idea of a marginal type of move, the McConnell, the Alvarado, the even maybe if you wanted to start going up to that Kobe White level, it all starts with the pretext of those guys holding value.
Right.
And that I think is just, I think we're just in this overall tricky situation of not having the same like defined values of like a first round pick, a lottery protected pick, like real currency.
Exactly.
It's confusing currency that the Wolves have right now. And I mean, frankly, like I would love to do an episode where we're just like, hey, here's 5 big trades I came up with. Let's have a conversation about it. But I've done that
so easily picked apart, you know?
Yeah, but I feel like in previous years, we've done that, and it's at least felt like a little bit more of a
but somewhat based in some ways, that's a good thing, isn't it? I mean, because what you're really talking about is, and I know the word continuity has lost a lot of credibility this year, but there is something to be said for the fact that under Chris Finch, this team has improved with its in-season continuity. And one of my objections to going, you know, Kobe White is probably the top of the caliber player I would envision being able to get for this team. And he's on an expiring contract that it's going to cost a lot more. And the point being is, I just don't think you have the capability to make the kind of deal that moves the needle dramatically. And that is a situation that in some ways is good because this team is saying, we've got a 6 that can get us, we think, at least past the first round, provided they don't get a really bad matchup. If they get like a Phoenix team that pressures the ball and they decide to go after Ant, Dante, and Julius Randle, the main ball handlers in the half court for this team, that may be suddenly exposed. And that's really what we're talking about. What I wrote in the column was you don't have depth in the playoffs to play 9 guys. You have depth in the playoffs to counter a strategic move that a team makes. That if you play an opponent that loves to pressure everybody, you can bring a guy who you don't usually give that many minutes to, who can handle pressure.
Right.
Like Mike Conley, regardless of how bad he is in other aspects of the game, I would assume would get a lot more playing time against a pressure team like Phoenix, like OKC, than they would against a team, you know, necessarily like the Lakers, for example, or somebody.
And then it becomes like, what's the opportunity cost of like, okay, Mike Conley needs to play in this because he's the only person who can break the press. Is he going to play 18 minutes tonight in the playoffs? He does not look like and is not performing like a player who should be playing.
There you go. And that's the reason for the trade or for a trade. But that's also, again, the opportunity cost. You never know. The Wolves got exceedingly lucky last year in getting the Lakers, who turned out to be a paper tiger in the playoffs, because they didn't have They had a rookie coach and a new superstar pairing that weren't ready for the kind of team the Wolves became in that series. And then Curry was injured and they got through there. And then they ran into the OKC buzzsaw, kind of similar, only, not really. The year before, they beat a really good Denver team, I think. But
that lacked depth.
Huh?
A Denver team that lacked depth.
Yeah, that's good. Good point. And so it really is just one of those things where the playoffs are fascinating for that reason. And that's one of the reasons why the February deadline is so interesting. You are 2 months away, 29, 30 games away from having to go into the playoffs with what you've got. How fast can you incorporate that piece? How willing is that new piece to being incorporated in the way you need him incorporated? Is Kobe White going to be okay coming off the bench?
That's such a black box in the assessment of this that,
exactly,
especially as we don't have access to. But even, a front office, the Wolves front office has a better idea about who Kobe White is or any of these guys and how they would.
I do think that Tim Connolly, he's a congenital glad hander. The guy just loves to network with people. And, but the upside of that is he gives glad handing a good name, is one of the things I said in the column. He's sincere. He's honest with people. He likes to go back and forth with people. And he shares his intel and gets intel from other people. I don't think he's very deceptive about it. And therefore it's kind of straight up. But that kind of guy, Rob Dillingham cost a 2031 pick. That's kind of where the Wolves are right now. He didn't want to mess with his core. And then in the last draft, he opted to not go backcourt. He opted to go with a very, very promising big man. A steal, kind of where it looks as of now, as of what we see today. But those are, both of those picks were not immediate help picks.
Right. So you said, I don't think that they can necessarily make a meaningful move, or certainly make a meaningful move if it's not trading one of those the top six guys. I do think they can. I think you open up your possibility for making a meaningful move, or more possibilities for making a meaningful move, if you trade one of the top six guys. I want to get into
absolutely
that. But first, to the Kobe White conversation, or just the trading for a guy on an expiring contract, Colin Sexton be in that mix, a handful of other guys that are making, like Kobe White's making $13 million right now and will be getting more than that in the future. And I've talked about that as a con, like a pros and cons. Like there's cons to that, because the Wolves do not have like the flexibility, to be able to do that. But there's some pros related to that too. And just to take the Kobe White one, I was thinking about this last night, of like, if you do trade for him at this 13 and you re-sign him for something in the 20s, they could probably get to like 2021 and stay under the second apron. But the thing is it's the second apron in the summer doesn't function as a cap in that sort of way of like, you can't give White 25 million if you don't have 25 million under. They could give White a new contract after it expires and then make a corresponding move. Trading Julius Randle, in the summertime, once it's done, trading Naz Reid, trading Rudy Gobert, trading a piece on the team that's making, if Rudy's making 35, there are ways to be able to trade him for 28.
You can finesse the consequences down the road.
Financially. And so I like Kobe White as a player. Now, every time I've talked about it, I'm like, I like Kobe White as a player. I have concerns about this thing with the salary, because the salary is going to go up, and I have concerns about him being an all offense, no defense type of player. And I do think I've been talking about those a little bit like too black and white, of like, there's a concern here with the money. There's a concern here with the defense. Thus, somewhat like dismissing it out of hand. But in a circumstance like this, where things are not lining up, nothing's going to line up perfectly here.
Right.
And you're going to be able to go get this guy that checks all your boxes on the floor, age-wise, salary-wise, all of that. I think we need to be at least or myself, considering things that come with cons while assessing the pros and using the idea that, down the line, we're going to be able to make corresponding moves that mitigate that. Like they signed Cat to that contract.
Right.
They gave him the Supermax.
Right.
Which they are smart enough to know was going to be problematic in time and force their hand. But they go, well, we have a couple of years until we need to, finesse this thing. And they waited a couple of years, and then they trade him for Julius and Dante, who make less. And
we're able to get Rudy down.
And another good example of Rudy. They renegotiated Rudy. He was supposed to be like 48 this year, and it's at 35.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so they're.
And Nas came in under budget, I think. I mean,
his extension. Actually, even Julius is
right. They both were really pretty valuable deals.
I mean, dude, I'm going through. Oh, maybe we can talk about some more expensive options, but I just was going through looking at like Garland, Fox, Kyrie, Suggs, Jalen Green, Quickly, Drew Holiday, and their contracts and how much those guys earn as a theoretical. You could trade a Rudy or Randall, if you wanted to get in that space. All of those guys make more than Julius. All of them. Like Quickly's making 32.5 this year. Drew Holiday's making 32.5 this year. Green's making 33.5 this year. Suggs is making 35 this year. Kyrie's making 36. Fox is making 37. Garland's making 40. Julius is making 30.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little frustrated with the Julius Randle basketball
experience. It is
experience,
absolutely ridiculous that Quickly is making more money than Julius Randle. I mean, who signed that? Was that Knicks?
I think that's Toronto.
Toronto did. So he signed after the deal?
Yeah. Whew. He has 32.5 this year and then 3 years, 98 remaining after that, which is whatever. Like you could think that about Quickly, and I don't think you're wrong that's that. But it's just, this is what the market is now. And I just think this serves as an example of, we used to think of 30 million as a max contract.
Right.
It's nowhere close. Like Julius is making 30. Carl's going to make 60 next year.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? It's just.
Well, that's why, I closed the column that's out today saying, and last but not least, no deal is better than a bad deal.
Yeah.
If you got to ride into the playoffs, crossing your fingers on Bones Highland, I will totally agree with you that that's not ideal. On the other hand, if you were going to get somebody who is going to compel you to get off some really good contracts of players who are helping you win at a pretty high level right now, then the person you're banking on acquiring better be worth it. And that's could be a pig and a poke, as they say.
They say that.
Back in the Civil War era. I was a teenager.
Me and Britt were talking about before the show about how when the Celtics won the championship with Doc Rivers, how I was in high school. And how old were you?
Was it 08?
08.
Yeah, 55.
Different reference points. I do want to talk a little bit more about trading for a more expensive player, but let's grab our break here. Let people know that we are doing a live show at Falling Knife Brewing Company, you and I, on February 13th at 7 p.m. That's the first Friday of All-Star break. The Wolves play their last game prior to the All-Star break on Wednesday. We've often done a trade or an All-Star break live show at Falling Knife. We normally do it like right before they come back. We're doing it on the front side this time, which I think will be fun. The Wolves will be a week removed at that point from having made a trade at the deadline. If they do, so we'll have seen a couple of games of the new player by that time. And I think it'll be a good time. It always is a good time to kind of reassess. We try to take questions from the audience.
It's been a while. I mean, was it October or something, right?
Yeah, it might have been the one right before the season.
Yeah, that's
that
what
we did there.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to it. It's also, I know you and I are not big all-star weekend, all-star festivities. People normally take that off, but like the Rising Stars game and some other stuff will be going on.
Right by that.
Yeah, we have, but it's going to be on. That'll be on there as well. So be a Friday night. We'll be hanging out at Falling Knife. We'll both be there by 6, kind of hang out, do the whole happy hour type deal, and then at 7, we'll start doing.
And it's always a good time. I love the questions, love the beer, love the atmosphere. It's just always a good vibe. We've done probably a half a dozen of them now, maybe more.
Probably more than that.
Yeah. And it's just, I walk in the door feeling like, I'm going to have fun for the next 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
You know? And so far I've never been disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that way too. It's good to, rather than just talking into a microphone,
right,
or just looking at you to talk at some actual people. So again, looking forward to that February 13th. I'll keep reminding you about it in the coming weeks. But with Britt here, I wanted to put that on your calendar. Friday, February 13th, 6 p.m. happy hour, 7 p.m. live show. It's Friday night. We'll be hanging out there and just taking questions, doing whatever. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the idea of making probably a less likely but a more forceful trade.
Okay.
Outside of the top 6, or trading a guy inside the top 6, a Gobert, a Randall, McDaniels, Edwards, DiVincenzo, Nas. That's the 6 there. I'm obviously they're not going to trade Ant. I've been thinking this for a while. I've been a little bit hesitant to say it because it will make it sound like I think Rudy Gobert should be traded or Julius Randle should be traded. I'm not totally certain. I don't feel like they should for sure, and that's the move. But on paper, when you're talking about roster construction, doesn't make sense to trade. Wouldn't it make sense to trade one of the bigs for a guard or a wing? And you just repurpose that. You took out Gobert or Randle from the front court mix. You replace them with Baron J and McDaniels, getting those 32 front court minutes. And then you repurposed Randle or Gobert into a similar caliber guard or wing. Wouldn't that make sense on paper?
I co-sign everything you just said. And before I even go there, I think about what pleases Ant. And if you're talking about trading somebody within the top 6, obviously Ant is off the table. But then in my opinion, Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid are also off the table because those are his guys. And it's more obvious that Jaden's his guy, but I also think that Naz, the 3 of those guys have been together
6 years.
Jaden and Ant's entire career and all of the meaningful time of Naz's career, his rookie year was, and so they've grown up together. They saw some bad things. They didn't play, they had some Ryan Saunders moments. And so, I think the continuity, the fact that they all have substantially improved their games over that time and know how each other play and have logged a lot of minutes together. And plus just, they have a group swagger that, and obviously is the president of that club, but Naz and Jaden in their own way have their own style and swagger. And all of them appreciate the way the other guy approaches the game and approaches their self-identity, I think.
They think they're cool. Like the self-identity.
That's a great way to just encapsulate everything I just said. And it doesn't really matter if you really are cool. If you're, from high school on up, if you feel like you're cool with the group and it's a sincere shared feeling, it's a great vibe. Yeah. And when you are at the level they're at, where coolness is kind of without dispute in its own way.
Yeah, right.
I just feel like Ant has been such a amenable superstar. He never threatens. We just got news that Giannis may be on his way out, one of the most loyal players in the game. And, if Ant lasts as long being loyal to the Wolves as Giannis has lasted with the Bucks. That's a fantastic thing for this franchise. But I think if you trade either Jaden or Nas, you begin to threaten that loyalty. Yeah. It's actually one of the reasons I'm a Finch guy. I think he's loyal to Finch in his own way too. And I think Finch goes out of his way to keep that relationship with Ant, challenge him, but also know what Ant can handle and can't handle at certain times. So,
and he takes the brunt of what Ant can't handle.
Right. So, which is all to say that if you're not going to trade any of those three, then that leaves three others. And DiVincenzo's contract doesn't make it that big of a splash.
Yep.
So you are looking at Rudy and Randall. And then we start to get into your logic, which is this team is pretty well fortified in the front court.
Yeah.
I mean, Berenger is beyond his experience right now.
I mean, that one's not sturdy. That's a little flimsy. And if that happened and all of a sudden Berenger's playing 18 minutes a night, we would learn what his flaws are.
Absolutely. But it would be a growth curve that would be, I don't think it's hard to look at the way Johan Berenger plays. Berenger plays. I think I butchered the first name and the last name on that. That guy, number 19, and see that his ceiling is really high. His instincts are...
Do you think his ceiling's really high?
Yeah, I do.
I think... sorry, I'll let you finish. But my view on it is more like the path to competence seems very straightforward. And maybe a high ceiling, like, is down the line. I just wonder about a player with skill-based limitations, how high the ceiling can go. In terms of, like, shooting, any sort of what will Berenger ever be able to do offensively that makes him a very high ceiling player? That's the part. I'm still open. ...
Yeah. Well, he's got a motor.
Yeah.
And he really works hard. He has already learned the Tyson Chandler methodology of, directing balls to his teammates. I had a fan who read something I said about that in the N1 newsletter, email me. He's a big soccer guy or football guy, depending on where you live in the world, and said that the things we're talking about with Berenger being able to direct balls and being able to catch on the run and just all the ways his footwork is pretty good already, advanced anyway, that a lot of that comes from the fact he has very little basketball experience, given that he started at 14, but he's got a lot of soccer experience.
Yeah.
So
I like that. Shout out that guy. I don't know anything about soccer, but I think I get what he's talking about there.
Right. And so I do think the coordination is there, the willingness to work is there, the athleticism I see is there. It doesn't translate. You're right. He doesn't have a smooth shot. He's not one of those 6'11", 7-footers who you immediately go, that he can be a space 5 guy, but it wouldn't surprise me if over the next 2 or 3 years, he develops an arsenal that is better than what Rudy can give you right now,
Offensively, yeah.
Yeah.
You thinking like Jared Allen?
That's an interesting comp.
Pretty good offensive player for not shooting.
No. Actually, when I was thinking about that, I like that. I like that comp.
Yeah.
Because Jared Allen has some of the same, the strengths and weaknesses are kind of tipping over into each other at different points.
Yeah.
He can have some games where it feels like he disappears and he still has a decent box score.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are games when it looks like he's playing really well and his plus minus is not very good. I mean, he's not a tentpole star on a team, but if you have him as one of your starters in your lineup, you're probably a good team.
But you need to accommodate the rest of your starting
I'm
lineup,
not going to
closing
say,
lineup
I'm not saying
accordingly.
Johan Berenger is a star, but what I'm saying
I'm
is,
just talking about that archetype of a center. Like Cleveland has needed to navigate that, and it's
Right.
like, I mean, what would be the best possible thing for Cleveland to have? It's like if
Right.
Evan Mobley could become a valuable
what they
3-point
thought
shooter.
Evan Mobley was going to be 2 years ago. I mean,
Shoot,
when he was all of a sudden he took a big step, and he hasn't taken another one.
Yeah, right.
But I do think that I think Berenger's ceiling would be Evan Mobley.
Evan Mobley.
Yeah, who's a very good. He's an all-star.
Yeah, I'm not going that high. I mean, there's just
that's
so
his
many
ceiling,
skills that he has as
But he's
a handler.
raw. He's raw, and I think his work ethic and his athleticism is such that I wouldn't put it past him. I agree with you that the quickness that we see from Mobley would be harder for Berenger to do.
Yeah,
but
I'm just not giving him personally. I'm not giving him a ceiling of a player that I know can dribble and shoot, because I don't know if Berenger is going to be able to ever do that at a high level. I'm not trying to take away from him. I'm just
no.
I'm thinking about, you're talking about one archetype in Evan Mobley as we do just the Cavs front court,
right?
And I'm looking
Jared
at Jared
Allen
and
right
those are
now,
different.
I would agree, is the more realistic comp, and is the comp I can visualize better. But we're talking ceilings now, not likelihoods.
Yeah. It's like, okay. So you're not trading Berenger. Me neither.
And Tim Connolly certainly is.
Certainly
Because you have to Dillingham.
But so we were talking about Berenger. I derailed that. We were talking about Berenger through the context of if Randall or Gobert are moved, he's able to fill some of that void. Jaden could fill some of that void in the front court.
And I love the inclusion of that, because you know my bias. I tell you every time when we're sitting next to each other and Jaden gets to play some rim protection. I mean, I'm just thrilled. I just love it. I love it when because he's an ambush rim protector. And it's one of my favorite types of players, is a guy that you don't he's meeting a guy who supposedly is bigger and stronger than him at the pinnacle.
Right.
And that happens more than people realize. And the competitiveness that makes him a guy who can hound De'Aaron Fox all around the court, or Steph Curry the other night. He can put that into shorter windows of movement,
right,
and body up some people. And also, he's used to guarding big guys too. And so, not behemoths, but guys, if they come in to block shot, to do the jump hook or something,
right.
He's a very good box out on rebounds. He's one of the best on the team at that. One of the few that does it, actually. And I think I would be very excited by the idea of Berenger, McDaniels with Nas, Randall fill in,
or Rudy if it's Randall going out. I think
Rudy, right.
I mean, it would work more cleanly, I think, if it was Randall going out for Jaden purposes of now you have 32 minutes at the 4 and you want Jaden,
But you could go small and fast.
You could. And
especially
also,
if you're getting that guy back that
is small and fast.
Conducive for that.
And also, again, as we're meticulously kind of going through this, like it could, Randall's gone or Rudy's gone, Berenger, McDaniels, and you could go get, even on the buyout market, a 5 who can give you 12 minutes of rim protection, maybe even in the playoffs or another trade. Like there's a lot of those guys out there that, if they wanted to remain sturdy, a little bit sturdier in the front court when you're letting go of if you were letting go of your best rim protector in Rudy or your strong guy and Randall, they could replace some of that. The question becomes though, what are you getting? What are you getting for Rudy? What are you getting for Randall? And again, I just want to reiterate, I'm not talking about this necessarily in the context of the trade deadline in a couple of weeks of a trade for either of them, though I don't think that is ridiculous to speculate on. I just think at some point we're certainly going to hit this point where trading one of them is logical. So as we approach a transaction window, I think this is a conversation to have, and I think it's a real conversation to have in the summertime if it doesn't happen, as Baron J has matured a little bit more, as
Right.
you have another opportunity to kind of reconfigure your books
Right.
through making some moves there. So I just think this is a reasonable conversation to have.
Well, not only that, but what makes it more reasonable is Tim Connolly's history.
Yeah.
I mean, he traded for Rudy Gobert. He traded away Karl Anthony Towns. Both of those moves, no warning, and jaw-dropping when they happened.
Yeah.
It's like, remember the feeling when all of a sudden Gobert was here for like the rest of the future, is what it felt like, you know, and 4 starters, 4 picks, or 4 rotation players, 4 picks. And then Cat, you know, boom. Both of those were just, whoa. And
I throw Aaron Gordon in there too, in Denver too, as a
right, good point.
like a poorer man's version.
Yeah, he's not afraid to, you know, pull the trigger on it.
And specifically players who have confusing value. He has a history of that.
Yeah. Jaden Clark, a guy with an Achilles injury.
Well, I'm more talking about
I
these
know,
big,
but I'm saying in the draft too.
Yeah.
If you think about Dillingham, Clark, these guys are like, you know, Rob
Risky.
Dillingham is, you know, very, very young. Berenger, all the, you know, he likes to take flyers on somebody his instincts tell him have a really high upside.
And specifically where that isn't the prevailing wisdom elsewhere.
Right.
Aaron Gordon was that too.
Yep.
6 years ago or whatever that was when he was in Orlando.
Then there also, he balances that with practical stuff.
Mhm.
I want Rudy Gobert so Ant gets playoff minutes.
Yeah.
That was one of the more profound things I think he has said, because he's spoken into existence as well as traded it into existence. And that has been extremely helpful.
Right.
I mean, if Anthony Edwards had followed the Cat path of being the best player on a bad team for 3 or 4 years in a row, that has a much different impact on your attitude toward the NBA, on the way you're perceived in the NBA. He hasn't won nothing, you know, kind of thing. So
there's value in that alone in keeping a star.
Yeah. And I guess all I'm saying is, once again, Tim Connolly has proven, Rob Dillingham aside thus far right now, has proven that he is a personnel guru to be trusted.
With trades, doesn't have a great drafting record.
Well, I mean,
outside of Jokic, I mean, it's not, I mean, which is obviously a big outside of Jokic.
No. I actually think that, Berenger is a really good pick already.
Yeah, but I can give you Wendell Moore Jr., I can Terrence Shannon Jr., I can give you Rob Dillingham. I mean,
right.
And it's also just your theory on Berenger. Like, you have a very high view of Berenger. We don't know that you're right about how good of a pick that Berenger is going to be.
Here's what I will tell you. I think if you offered Johan Berenger in trade talks right now, what you could get back already proves it's a good pick.
I agree, it's a good pick. I'm just saying, I don't think Tim Connolly is an A student when it comes to the draft.
Okay.
In his career. I mean, how could you even argue that? What are the arguments other than you drafted Jokic in the second round? He didn't again, good. I love the Aaron Gordon trade. The Rudy Gobert trade has worked to a serious degree. The Julius Randle trade was for getting DiVincenzo and Berenger, and that was a really good repurposing. The Mike Conley, Nickeil Alexander-Walker trade for D'Angelo Russell
I agree.
was a great trade. Those are just two different things.
While you're talking to me about trades I already know about, I'm looking back into Tim Connolly's draft history.
Yeah. I'm just saying those are kind of two different things.
No. Yeah, I think you're probably right that the record isn't that great. I guess what I would say is
Leonard Miller, not great. You know, I mean, seriously.
Out of the box, I like the out of the box thinking. I think that's what I'm talking about.
Yep.
It isn't so much what that out of the box thinking has produced, but the idea of trading a pick 6 years down the road for somebody you want right now because you think it could be the Mike Conley heir apparent, or getting a guy who's hasn't played basketball until he was 14, and going and getting that guy because you think his upside is better than the other positions. I guess I like the fact that I enjoy his guts makes me overrate his brain in that area.
Yeah. And I mean, just because you might not be an A student drafting doesn't mean you're not an A president of basketball operations. I'm not arguing that.
But we are, if you're going to grade people on the draft, you do have to grade the brain. And, you do have to, all right, so how did that pick work out? Mm-hmm. So I'm conceding the point that when you show me the players he has drafted and what they have done when they were taken, the method was admirable. The results have not been.
Sure. Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks, and let's put together a Prize Picks lineup for tonight's Wolves-Mavs game. Julius Randle's number is set at more or less than 21.5 points, and I know he hasn't been playing his best lately, but I'm pretty tempted to say more than 21.5 points for Randle tonight because Anthony Edwards is listed as questionable to play. And in the 10 games this season that Edwards has not played, Randle has had 22 or more points, often way more than 22 points. In 8 of those 10 games, and the 2 he didn't, he had 21 points, and in the other that he didn't have 22 or more, he had a 19-point triple-double. We know Randle has big games when Ant doesn't play, so I don't know. Give me Randle to have 22 or more tonight. Even if Ant does play, don't hate those odds either. And then how about Najee Marshall? I've liked how he's been playing this season. When I've watched Dallas, he's attempted 18 free throws over the last 2 games for the Mavs, and his number is set at more or less than 3.5 free throws attempted for that game. So give me 4 more free throws attempted for Marshall tonight. You can also now make picks against the spread over at Prize Picks. The Wolves are 6.5-point favorites as I look at this right now. So you can get into plenty of different things over at Prize Picks for tonight's Wolves-Mavs game. And if you're listening on Thursday, there will be a whole new spread for the Wolves game against the Thunder. If you don't have a Prize Picks account yet, all you have to do is put in the promo code DANE when you sign up, and you'll receive $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app using promo code DANE. To keep pulling on the trade Randle or Gobert thread for the purpose of talking about making a meaningful trade,
right?
And not a trade for TJ McConnell or Jose Alvarado, entering a completely different tier, thus giving up a completely different tier of assets.
The treasure chest.
Yeah. So like the expensive, if you wanted to repurpose the bigs into guards, like the expensive guards, we know they could get in that way or could have gotten, the Trae Youngs, the John Morants.
Right.
I think to most people, those come with enough question marks that it doesn't excite you enough to disrupt what's going on.
For me. Well, I mean, also all of this, one of the first things you do is say, how do they fit with Ant?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the first question you ask. And so,
so Trae Young X, John Morant X for that reason.
Exactly.
I mean, that alone.
Jalen Suggs, okay. Beginning.
He's on my list.
Local kid who really plays hard, has some injury history, isn't a great shooter, but I really like him next. I like him in that, Nas, Jaden, Ant. I see him being a good fit.
I do too. I have him written down here as I guess I already kind of said a lot of these guys, but I mean, we have our own opinions of every one of these players, which is going to make what you like. You and I have a different opinion on Kyrie Irving.
Correct. I mean, I admire Kyrie Irving, but I don't know if I want him.
Yeah, and I'm just using it. I'm not saying it's perfect either, but that would make you go, and it would make me go, I like that. There's just a little bit of a different degree of that.
Yeah, I mean, even right now, I would put the 3 that I would group them in is Kyrie, Ja, Trae Young.
Yeah, so you would put him in that basket, which I get. I get. I'm.
Even though he played next to Doncic, and I thought he played relatively well next to Doncic.
Yeah.
So his fit with Ant is clearly better than the other 2, but also you get distraction baggage. I mean, Boston will never want anything to do with him ever again, and
most importantly,
you get the
mid-30s
crazy politics, and you get the injuries.
Yeah, mid-30s coming off of an ACL. That for sure is a factor there. So I don't know. I think it's about going through it for them, churning, some of these names of consideration, like Suggs. you talked about him there. He making $35 million this year.
I wince a little bit at that. I think that's a pretty big number for him. But then again, everybody's got a big number, as you point out.
I have some good news. 35 this year, then next year 32. The year after that 30. The year after that 27. The year after that 27.
Tremendous.
So there's
Orlando will never get rid of him.
As you said earlier, like
right.
I'm not saying any of these guys are attainable.
Right.
I'm saying these are the type of players who theoretically you would be trading Rudy Gobert for. And, you know, does Julius Randle make sense for Orlando directly? No. Mm-hmm. But I do think in this world we're doing right now with trades, it isn't really like a team for team trades. I know the Wolves did the Knicks trade and that was kind of a straight up trade, but a lot of these are multi-team deals.
The Mike Conley Nikhil trade.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Russ was going there or to Utah D'Lo to LA. Like, so I'm more so looking for players, guards, wings like Suggs, who could have equatable value to Rudy Gobert in the open market, and then maybe in the trade market you could find a 3-team trade that makes some sense for all parties involved. Harder to do in the second apron era, but we're talking about this. Right. That's the narrow path, the needle to thread there. So Suggs, I think, is at a higher level. I think everybody listening to that be like, yeah, I mean, if you can find a way to trade Julius Randle for Jalen Suggs, like,
yeah, I think that's a good deal for both clubs.
Well, I mean, I meant here, you know, for the Minnesota purpose, I don't think that would be a good trade for Orlando. I don't think that. I mean, they have Paolo Banchero, who I think is the most similar player in the NBA to Julius Randle.
Oh, interesting.
You don't think so? Or LeBron? Right. I mean,
but I think that you could play the three bigs idea, not having a center
in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I don't know what the intricacies. Neither of us probably know the intricacies enough of that. But so Suggs is on, you know, this level where maybe like Darius Garland would be up there too. He's making 39.5 this year, and then has 2 years and 87.
Making, speaking of Orlando,
he's on a rookie contract, probably like 6 or something like that. That's good luck there. I mean, just because he's so young.
It feels like he's been around longer than that. But
I think this is his third year. Third, maybe fourth. Could be fourth year. Third, I think.
Okay.
Also, I think in the Garland, maybe if we want to say Suggs mix too. What about De'Aaron Fox? 37 million this year, then 5 years, 223 million after this. That's average annual of 56 million. I mean, a cap contract, basically.
Well, I'm of the belief, and I've argued with Del Demps about this. We talk San Antonio a surprising amount because we both like that team a lot.
Sure.
But I'm of the belief, I was of the belief that Castle and Harper should be the guys in the future. And he was persuasive in saying they need a guy like Fox, especially for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's right. The numbers show that Fox has been extremely helpful to them. I thought they were playing extremely well when Fox was injured, and that's what I was kind of basing it on. Plus, I love Castle and Harper, both of them. And I think you really fast forward the development if you play them. But the point is, I don't think San Antonio wants to trade him, and I'm not sure that's a lot of money, and especially if you're giving away Rudy Gobert, it's kind of like you need Rudy Gobert around if you have De'Aaron Fox on your team. So, you know, as much as I like Jaden as a rim protector, there's a lot of rim protection necessary if De'Aaron Fox is on the floor.
And that one just probably doesn't work for salary cap second apron
and
reasons.
Also, he's a clutch guy, and Ant would be jealous. Ant wants the ball in the clutch, at least doesn't want a guy who has been the clutch guy his entire career and has been proven to be really good at it. I don't think we want that rivalry in Ant's time frame.
The biggest issue I think with Fox is that his contract is going to go from like 37 to in the 50s next year.
Right.
And that's a little bit different than what I'm talking about with the Kobe White thing.
Yeah,
Of
exactly.
an extra salary. slot.
And Rudy would just be the beginning of that trade.
Right. So then a tier down, but in the range of what Gobert and Randall make is the less sexy names, but our guards or wings of Emmanuel Quickley and Jalen Green. What about Randall for one of them? From the Wolves' perspective.
Yeah, no, I know. I don't like Quickley that much. And I'm not sure he gives you anything with the possible exception of ball handling. I mean, he's a good defender. Yeah, I agree. I just, he's not good enough. I mean, that's the bottom line.
And that's what I'm at. That's all I'm asking.
But Jalen Green is intriguing just because he's a bucket. And when he's healthy, I think he's a really good shooter. But also I think would defer to Ant if they played together. But then again, who's your point guard? Back to it. It's not a good fit. Neither one.
Yeah, I think you start getting into this situation where you go, okay, maybe let me rethink some of my frustrations with Randall of lately. Let me reconsider the fact that his contract is good, that he does probably seem really happy here. Some of all those, I don't know if I need that disruption if it's for Jalen Green or Emmanuel Quickley.
And there's a lot of reasons. He is a 3-time All-Star, obviously none with the Wolves thus far, and probably won't be this year either, who is very deferential to Ant. Freely says Ant's the straw that stirs the drink. But at the same time, has enough confidence in himself and the ability to take over a game, even if Ant's on the floor. I think that is a great combination of personality type and skill set to play next to Ant. I didn't think that Ant and Randall would work out well at all because they're both ISO heavy, and that still is a little bit of an issue. But when the Wolves have been playing really well and they get out and transition more, that could be a really fun offense with both of them on the court. And that's not easy, given those. I guess what I'm saying, I'm praising Randall for being adaptable to the point he has been to make himself a really valuable piece, especially with that contract.
Yeah, I mean, they play really good offense when Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle are on the floor.
Right.
And that, to your point, was a question given some of the style there. But they've made that work for some of the sacrifices that Julius has made. I think some of the sacrifices that Ant has made. The issue is they're terrible defensively when both of them are on the floor. And I think when considering any sort of Randle trade for a guard, replacing him with a player who's more offense and less defense,
doesn't solve anything, right?
Yeah, there's not as much of a pull there. Okay, yeah. So offensive rating with Ant and Julius on the floor this year, 121. Defensive rating, 117.
Yeah.
So below average defensively. It's not the terrible degree of the Reed Randall minutes,
right?
But that group is saved. The Edwards Randall minutes are saved by the fact that they play with Rudy a lot of the time. If we take away the minutes that they play with Rudy, Edwards on, Randall on, Gobert off.
Wow. It's not often, and it's probably a huge high.
Well, no, I mean, there could be Reed Randall minutes with Ant on the floor.
Oh, yeah, you're right. But even then,
guess the defensive rating of
Ant
that.
does go off, huh?
Guess the defensive rating there.
131.
122. No, it's not that bad. I don't know if anybody's 130. Over 120 is really bad. So I say that to mean I think that has to be where we've got a year and a half of the Edwards Randall experience, and defensively they're not good. And frankly, trending in the wrong direction. Ant is moving towards being, an 11 out of 10 offensively. And if he was a 7 out of 10 defensively before, he's dropping, down to a 5 out of 10. So I say that to mean like replacing Randall with another mostly offense, less defense guy, regardless of position, might not crater them as much as it seems on the surface. Final bucket that is in this salary range that isn't Jalen Green, isn't Emmanuel Quickly, is Drew Holiday. $32.5 million this year, and then has 2 more years and $72 million remaining. It's like 36, 37 over the next 2 years, millions. That's also his age. The next 2 years is 36 and 37, which is daunting and scary when you're talking about over 30 million. Right. That was Mike Conley's age when they traded for him. I haven't watched enough of Portland with Drew out there to know what my feelings are of this season's Drew Holiday versus my preconceptions of it. But I think that's an interesting one. It's a little bit different than the other things we've been talking about here. It's kind of similar to the Suggs one, but doesn't have the advantages of his youth, of his contract de-escalating. Drew Holiday seems more attainable, but
I agree.
At what cost?
It's because there's a lot of wear on him. I mean, he is a rugged defender. Finch loves him. Has always said probably his favorite player he's ever coached.
Up there, yeah.
And
he was with him in New Orleans.
Yeah. And I love him too, but there has been decline already. His peak years were, probably 2 or 3 years ago.
At least. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, the way he meshed with that Celtics team that almost won and then did win was fantastic. And he was also really good, with the Bucks.
I was looking at just some of the catch-all numbers on him. Yeah, so he's from 2020 through 2025. I'm just scrolling. I mean, he's been, and well before that too, in the mid-90s percentile defensive estimated plus minus for Holiday has been. This year it says 76th percentile. Degrading a little bit in that way.
But I mean,
yeah. But again, I don't know. I need to watch more.
I do think that, I mean, when we saw Portland early, to be fair. But
it's not like I've not watched
put
any
it this
Portland.
way, it's an interesting idea. You're looking at a team that's going to have Dame back next year, and Randall and Dame would be intriguing, I'm sure. I don't know what you do with Grant.
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing with any of this Randall stuff is why I keep bringing up the three team. If you're intrigued by this conversation, listeners, that Britt and I are having, I think the piece of work you need to do that I haven't done, and frankly I think is hard to do, is find the team that craves Julius Randle.
Right.
That would need to exist out there to either make a direct 2-team trade with or to involve in a
well, it's like, for example, wouldn't you trade Julius Randle for Derek White?
Yeah, right.
And the absolute perfect guy. I can't think of a better player to put on the Minnesota Timberwolves right now than Derek White. Right. I literally cannot. That is the best player in the NBA to put into this roster. And aside from Ant, I might even risk, no, because of the youth, I maybe still wouldn't think about Jaden and Nas. Maybe Nas. But, of course, the Celtics aren't going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
It's, or Jaylen Brown, for that matter. MVP hopeful. But that is the prototype. If you ask me what you want a guy who is good enough to be an Olympian, and when he played on the Olympics turned out to be better than most of the superstars, but is low key.
Yeah.
And
which is like Drew Holiday, but he's got a leaky,
little bit younger and a little bit better than Drew
Yeah.
Holiday right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But again, and that's just,
no, I agree. No,
it's the difficulty of the conversation.
I would take him over, Quickly and Green in a minute. even with the age.
Yeah.
Because again, the thing about aged players is in 3 years, it'll be done. Mike Conley is off the books this year.
After this year.
So, and that, quite frankly, is one of the reasons Chicago, I mean, if you're looking for a rental with Kobe White, then Conley, the rumor of Conley, Shannon, and a couple of second rounders for Kobe White makes sense both ways.
Yeah.
If Kobe White agrees to be a rental and agrees to a role that may not suit him for free agency.
Yeah, and if Chicago thinks that way too, are they wanting to sell stuff off? Or
they should be at this point in time.
I think the messaging is they're more would be more like the team that would buy a Julius Randle to go win a little bit more this season.
Prone.
Yeah,
come on.
That's what it's been.
Team that's made the play-in like 6 years in a row or whatever, ever since the play-in has happened, wants to keep making the play-in.
We could keep talking about trade stuff, but I do want to talk about the Oklahoma City matchup a little bit.
Okay.
We've almost been going for an hour here. So I was watching the beginning. I rewatched the first half. I meant to watch the whole game, but didn't finish it.
I haven't seen Oklahoma City in a while.
I'm talking about, I rewatched the December 19th game that the Wolves beat them, the Finch ejection, Mike Norrie takes over, Ant at the end. I was reminded that Oklahoma City was healthy for that game.
Mm-hmm.
Rob Dillingham played in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Conley did not play in that game. He was hurt, like not DNP'd. He was in street clothes. And this version of Oklahoma City is banged up right now and is
they're 8-5 in January.
Yeah, and they're playing. I watched their game against Toronto the other day, and I think I was talking to you about this. Their closing lineup for that game was Chet Holmgren, Kenrich Williams, Aaron Wiggins, Lou Dort, and SGA. Like very limited group, and Toronto beat them. I say that to mean I think this is a winnable game for the Wolves on Thursday, as they've shown that they can compete with Oklahoma City
and they
even
get up
at full strength.
And will be a
yeah.
I mean, two things: Ant's health and fourth game in 5 days. Those are two things that are against the Wolves. They'll be on an away home back to back, which is the only thing worse is a home away back to back. But it's not ideal. It's a rest disadvantage game, as John Schumann would say.
Right.
They've been great games.
Yeah.
It is funny that the Denver games after those playoff series were ultra competitive, and now that we had that playoff series, that Dallas doesn't have the same charge because it's not a Luka Dallas team. But when a team beats you in the playoffs, there's a little extra mustard in the succeeding games you play in the regular season. So, and to me, the big thing is always, can Julius Randle learn how to play against OKC?
Yeah.
I mean, being able to throttle Randle and have them still be competitive is a fascinating dynamic. And maybe it's because they devote a lot of energy toward shutting Randle down that enables, why is Rob Dillingham a better player against OKC than almost anybody else? It's maybe because they're so disciplined that they know who they want to shut down and who they want to let go. I don't know. I haven't looked at the games with that in mind, but I respect the hell out of OKC. They will always bring it. They're organized. SGA,
even if they are missing a couple guys, they'll bring it.
SGA alone. I mean, the guy, speaking of Schumann, he came out. What was the quote from Schumann? I was reading you like, there hasn't been an NBA player in the history of the league that averages over 30 points a game that has a better true shooting percentage than SGA right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's nuts. That includes Wilt. Of course, there's no 3-pointers. Wilt wouldn't.
Right.
But I mean, still, you talk about efficiency. That guy is one of the most efficient scorers in NBA history.
I'm looking at this right now for their injury report. It says Hartenstein game time decision, Caruso game time decision, Case Wallace game time decision, AJ Mitchell game time decision, and then J-Dub is out with that hamstring injury for at least another week or so. So it's going to be a little bit of
That's a pretty good starting 5.
Yeah, that's true. But like you said, the Randall piece of it, looking at my notes here, he started the Oklahoma City game 2 of 13 from the field, and that's been a pattern with them of.
Well, they know how to harass him.
Yeah.
They know how to get under him. I say this as a compliment. Randall is a bully. And if you frustrate a bully in the course of his bullying, it's very frustrating.
Yeah.
And because he's used to being able to literally throw his weight around. And what they do is come at him less with force than with numbers.
Right.
A lot of hands and a lot of activity.
Right.
And again, I've got to think that in some ways they sell out to stop Randall, and that does make them a little bit more vulnerable to everybody else because the Wolves do play well against them. But it would really help if Randall was smarter, get off the ball sooner, get his positions so that he can go as soon as he catches the ball wherever he's going from. I wouldn't necessarily. I've come to think of Randall shooting threes as a cross your fingers proposition.
Right.
He's down a third of his makes. Is what he shoots right now. So it's still got to be post play or transition.
Yeah, it's a can't play in a crowd game.
Right.
And also, I think for him in particular, it has to be one of those games where you go in with the mentality that you are not going to be drawing fouls.
Right.
No,
right.
like you just not kind of taking the shots that you think are going to lead.
Right.
Yeah. And they foul a lot. Obviously, that's why Finch got ejected. That was after a Randall play there at the beginning of the first quarter last time they played each other. But it just he needs to have that mindset of it's like when you're playing pickup with your friends, but one of your friends is like a Division I player and they just never call fouls. They just don't let it, they're like, okay, you can foul me, but this is how we even the stakes here.
Method, right.
Yeah, right. Like and so it's always Julius that's the right first thing to bring up. I think in the Oklahoma City matchup, it's the one thing you go into the game expecting not to go well, but you're looking for reasons or ways that it can be better.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking for on Thursday night of can you find ways to make Julius Randle deliver you the production and usage that, that's mirrors what he normally is giving this Wolves team, when they're playing good. That's a very open question.
Quick decisions. I think the 2-man game where they Ant and Ragu, the weave that they do is one way to do it. And then pass off the weave, space the floor with passing after you concentrate the defense because OKC likes to blow stuff up. And so I think a combination.
They're not going to let you just enter to the elbow to Randall. They don't do that.
Yeah. And if they do, they want you to enter the elbow to Randall because they know where they're coming from behind him. And so, they are in a weird way, they are an easily scoutable team because they are so disciplined and they do have a system, but they still do it extremely well. Now, I'll tell you, Caruso is huge in this. J-Dub, wasn't there at least for one of the 2 games.
He was there for the last one.
Yeah.
They did Hartenstein on Gobert, Holmgren on McDaniels, J-Dub on Randall, Dort on Edwards, SGA on DiVincenzo. And then in the second half, if you remember in that game, they started Isaiah Joe in place of Hartenstein, and they went with the one big thing.
Your guy.
This is my guy. But it was interesting that their behavior in that game, I remember this well, dictated they wanted to play one big versus the Wolves and play 5 out.
Right. That's right.
And
that's right.
part of it was too Hartenstein was just getting back from an injury himself in that game.
But he did have a rough game.
He played really bad. So it'll be, again, just another real meaningful data point of how these two teams match up, what they can and can't do against each other. I think that matters a lot when we think about these two teams potentially meeting in the postseason.
Right. I agree. And McDaniels is a wild card, as always. Right. Dort on Ant is going to be what it is, and it's always
and then Wallace after him.
Yeah. And but McDaniels, I remember one of the two games, McDaniels went off in the first quarter. Might have been the first game they played.
I think it was the first one.
He had like 13 points in the first quarter, something ridiculous.
Right.
And then got quiet. But you need a boomlet from McDaniels just to loosen things up. Oklahoma City is not the kind of team that you're going to beat with one score or two scores.
Right.
You're going to have to move the ball. You're going to have to make quick decisions. And you're going to have to meet them at their own game in terms of turning points into turnovers into points.
Yeah.
And the Wolves did that in that win. They, I think they may have even won the points off turnover battle.
Right.
Which, if you do that against OKC, you have a so much better chance of winning because that's their bread and butter. That's how they get their blitzkrieg runs.
Right.
And that's why Randall is so vulnerable because he's a hot and cold guy that way. He'll destroy you for 4 straight possessions, or he'll turn the ball over 3 of those 4 possessions.
Right.
And OKC likes to pounce on that.
Right. Another thing I have written down from that last matchup is, if you remember, they shifted Ant's rotation so that he played when SGA was off the floor. When normally
you mentioned that, right?
Ant normally plays the whole first quarter. It does the same thing Shea does. Play the whole first quarter, sit the first 5 or 6 minutes of the second quarter, and then same thing, whole third quarter, same thing the fourth quarter.
You're the rotation monitor guy.
Well, I just thought that was an interesting playoff tactic that the Wolves that the Wolves did there, and it led them to win the minutes that Shea was off. The first 6 minutes of the second quarter in that game I have down here in my notes, the Wolves won by 4. And then the first 5 minutes of the fourth quarter while Shea was off, the Wolves won by 6. That's a plus 10 in those minutes, specifically because they not only shifted when Ant was playing, they made it so Jaden always was playing when SGA was out there. So I don't know. I mean, these games are significantly more interesting for these reasons than like the Dallas game today.
Yeah, exactly. And as you were saying that, I'm just thinking to myself, we miss Na again.
Yeah.
Because Na was the great Jaden sub, give him 6 minutes on, for 2-3 minute stints on SGA. Or that time now, so much in the distant past, the play-in game with OKC in Minnesota where Na just dominated his cousin.
Yeah, no, I remember. And now what they did in that game was they didn't want to use the new Na. They did Jalen Clark,
Right.
But I would hold importance on Jalen Clark in this game too.
Provided he could be the Jalen Clark we used to know.
Yeah, because there is just a possibility that Jaden's in foul trouble right away in this game, or just in general which takes away your ability to match up his minutes with Shea.
Right.
100%. And then you lose some of the advantage.
You can burn 4 Jalen Clark fouls on SGA if you have to. It's different. I mean, he gets his 13 minutes and he's on the bench with 4. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
But he still gets his 13 minutes. Whereas you want Jaden to get his 34 minutes, not his 27 minutes, which is what happens when he gets in foul trouble.
Yeah. And that's a huge swing factor in this game.
It is.
Is SGA going to get jaded in foul trouble, which taps into all the. That's what.
And
Shea looks
it was stark that when Finch got tossed, they didn't get as good a whistle.
Yeah.
And it's always going to be something about the whistle. And this is a game at home, and season ticket holders will remember the last OKC game at home and be ready for getting on the refs for any whistle, even no matter how reasonable. Because I want to say something about SGA, because I understand that he's really good at what he does in terms of figuring out what is technically a foul, even if it's a rule book foul, but it doesn't feel like anything remotely like a playground foul.
Yep.
And that's why he gets the reputation he gets. But I'll take it like I've never liked Embiid's foul baiting. His type of foul baiting was always much worse than SGA's to me. And I want to stand up for the fact that even though he credibly can be accused of being a foul baiter and a good one, he's a marvelous player anyway. He all the way around, he's a superb defender. He's one of the most subtly effective leaders. He does not get in the way of what's going on and yet guides it.
Yeah.
He is a remarkable floor general. He's not a classic point guard, but he runs that team so well. And if you love basketball, stop being so annoyed by the fouls. They're going to happen anyway. He's going to get them. Most of them are actually correct calls. Change the rule if you don't like it. But also appreciate what that guy is doing, because it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
He really is a good player.
This should be a really fun matchup.
Yeah.
And I think we were a little robbed of that in the conference finals last year. That wasn't a very good series.
Although, I remember those first couple of games in OKC I thought were fun. They were close for a while.
Yeah, maybe I'm remembering the end too much, where it just felt out of reach.
Well, they got destroyed in game 5, if you remember.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, that left a bad taste for everybody. But the first two, we were up in the nosebleeds, and it's a great arena. I mean, they are totally into their team. But it was a competitive game, especially like in the first first 3 quarters. Right. I thought the Wolves played well. It doesn't, 4-1 sounds terrible, but it wasn't. There wasn't the one game the Wolves won. They dominated. The last game that OKC played, the game 5, they dominated. So aside from games 3 and 5, though, I thought the 1, 2, and 4 were good games.
And in the regular season, it's largely been terrific.
Been great.
Every one of these. So yeah, I'm looking forward to Thursday and seeing more chess in this, and who's playing for Oklahoma City, and that doing it within that context.
And is Ant playing? I mean, crazy as it sounds.
I think so.
It would be hard to, I would bet a significant amount of money on it, but on the other hand, it's 10 games now.
Yeah.
And 17 is the cutoff, right?
Yep.
So
it's on pace to not make it.
Right.
Barely.
Now, he's also on pace to miss more games this season than his career combined. Before that, I can't remember what that is, but he's right around it now. He's only missed like 10 or 15 games in his career before this year. So.
They got a better record or better winning percentage this season with Ant out of the lineup than when he's been in the lineup.
Yeah, and some of that is competition.
Yeah, and he comes.
And some of that.
A lot of it is competition.
Ant will play.
He comes back for the game. He played the San Antonio game, sat out the bad teams. Right. Came back for San Antonio.
The JV Warrior squad.
I don't know for sure what's going on with Ant's toe,
Right.
other than the fact that it was, an infection that's been, treated.
Somebody who has medical knowledge in my feed, I wish I could remember the person's name, was saying an infected toe is worse than people realize.
Sure. No,
and that's,
I don't know. We don't know. And certainly that person doesn't
Right.
either of what's actually going on.
Right.
I would just open up the possibility that it's something that's somewhat cumbersome that
Right.
provides an opportunity for Ant to get rest whenever he wants to get rest. Like maybe on a
Right.
back-to-back when they're playing against the Golden State Warriors and the Golden State Warriors aren't playing any of their starters.
Right. Exactly.
That seems
that
like the
felt
most
fishy.
likely
Yeah.
thing that's going on here
Right.
right now with the toe overall. But I would anticipate him playing. I hope he plays. I hope as many of the Oklahoma City guys play as well, so we get a true test. But they're also not. You take even 2 or 3 of those guys out of the mix, they are still.
But the guys you
real.
mentioned,
Yeah, right. Yeah, those are some real guys.
when you're starting Kendrick,
Yeah.
that's you're Kendrich, I guess. Yeah.
I like him, but not.
He's a nice man.
Yeah. Anything else from this game or in general you want to touch on before we close it out?
No, I mean, I do think people need to remember that they had yesterday off and they were getting ready to play on Saturday. So that's not a day off.
Yeah.
If you find out 2 hours before the game or 3 hours before the game, you're not playing, it's not a day off. You're mentally in it.
Mhm.
And then you play, and then you play again. And it was kind of a busman's holiday on the Sunday game. It was no
Monday
game.
Yeah.
It was no, it wasn't competitive. It was a, frankly, charade of a game. But tonight and then tomorrow, that's a rough road. And 4 games in 5 nights is hard for anybody. And we're in that time of year where, and the country, it's hard to travel with all the weather going on in the country. I don't know what it's going to be like in Dallas. They apparently got a ton of snow, 4 days ago. I'm sure it's cleared by now, but the whole vibe is the kind of vibe that NBA players who do this and media members who travel a lot more than me, and it's, even more than you, say it's the grind. It's the dog days of the season. So among other things, it'll be a character test. Dallas is an intriguing team always, you know, and they destroyed Dallas the only time they played them. And this team it could be a trap game, I guess, if such a thing could happen. So I think tonight has some intrigue to it. And we just, wailed on the next game. So
right, yeah. Well, I mean,
and then after that, it's 2 in Memphis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Toronto, and then the trade deadline.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting test.
It is.
Can Bones keep it going? That's something, I guess. Let's close on that.
Okay.
The next week is enormously important for Bones Hyland. If he can convince, we've gone through all the reasons why it's not easy to make a value trade. If the Wolves could get out of having to think we need to make a trade, it will be because Bones found his mojo again and is back doing what he does. And it still would be a risky bet to bet on him, but stranger things that happen. I mean, championship seasons and surprisingly successful seasons. You remember the guys who, remember when Bones Hyland came out of nowhere and, throughout the last 30 games of the season and a couple of playoff series was just what they needed,
Right.
I mean, that's still in play. I say this as somebody who's been wrong about Bones all year. Hated him when he was good, loved him when he was bad. So the fact that I'm highlighting and somewhat optimistic about what he'll do now may be a bad sign.
Well, I mean, the way to put it is it's still somewhat of a wild card. We don't know what to bank on, but it's like a wild card that can come up green, you know,
Exactly.
And could come up largely green the rest of the way. The interesting thing with the bench, and just tied to the whole trade deadline thing too, is it's like, well, is that even enough? Even if you have Nas as your sixth man and this better version of Bones, that's still just 7 guys,
right?
And you know, and
you are in the dog days. And
right.
you do need Mike Conley minutes, if only to place hold some things.
Right.
And
well, that's at least what's happened. The plan has been.
Yeah. No. And
not not a plan that's been working great.
Yeah.
But it's the plan.
And it's Mike Conley is not as important as Bones Highland right now. I think that that is not an epitaph, but it's getting there. What
a crazy truth.
Exactly.
Of 4 months ago. I mean, can you imagine saying that? It's but you're right. And Bones, you bring that up, you wrote about it in the piece too, of just because it was exactly what they needed against that bereft Warriors team, but they needed something, and Bones provided
a spark.
Them. Yeah.
Mike Conley is
not a spark.
You know, he'll give you. Mike Conley is the guy who hands out water when you're really tired. Bones Highland is the guy who, like, you know, charges ahead. It's just, I mean,
spark. Maybe he's Flint or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's Mike is a steadier, and the bench needs a lift. It doesn't need steadying.
Yeah.
And
that's a good way to put it.
So anyway, which isn't to say that I don't applaud. I mean, Mike Conley came into the game, one of his rotations the other day, I think it was the Sunday game. And you could tell wanted to make a difference and was sprinting around and dove, not dove, but anticipated and jumped in front of somebody and poked the ball to a teammate, and they were off and running for a transition bucket. And I thought, all right, Mike's still battling, and still, when Mike is playing now, a lot of times he's playing like a second-year eighth man who's trying to stay in the rotation.
Right.
And
I get what
and that's poignant and also admirable.
Yeah.
For somebody his age.
All right. I went a little long here, but I'm glad we got some trade deadline talk in. And also kind of talked about the current state of the team here. That's also what Britt's column's about. If you guys want to check that out over at Min Post, he goes a little more into Bones, and then also in the And One newsletter that you can sign up for there. The plan for us for the next episode is Kyle and I are going to record actually right after that Oklahoma City game on Thursday night. So you'll have that in your feed first thing Friday morning, because I am going to Memphis for those 2 games. So that'll be the last one of this week. Will be the Oklahoma City pod with Kyle, and then we'll mix in some coverage when I'm in Memphis as well, at least with the episode on Monday before the Monday game. Appreciate you coming on, Britt. You guys can follow him over on Twitter at Britt Robson. Read him over at Min Post. And until late Thursday night or in your feeds Friday morning. Until then, with Kyle, he's Britt. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah. Hope you dancing.